DreAllDay.com.
You're now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And we put all this together into one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy, one book, one show, one daily masterclass, all of this under one umbrella that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic, as promised, how to create an unfair advantage in life. Now, since I have given several episodes of this show to talking about why things are not going to be fair, why you should not be pushing for equality or looking at the food on another person's plate. We talked about all of these things in different episodes here of this show. Today, I'm going to tell you how you can create an unfair advantage for yourself to where you have the privilege, to where you are the beneficiary of inequities. You are the beneficiary of inequality, how you could be the person with more on your plate than other people, and then you got them bitching and whining, complaining about you instead of you being the one bitching and whining and complaining. Because let me give you all a secret. In case you didn't know, there will always be people in life who are bitching, whining, and complaining about what somebody has and they don't have. That is never going to change. All right, no government official, no bill, no law, no hashtag, no movement, no whatever you want to call it, name it, none of those things is going to change the fact that these individuals will always exist. What I aim to do with you is to make sure you are not one of them, okay? You won't be that person. You'll be the person being bitched, whined, and complained about rather than being one doing the bitching, whining, and complaining. All right, all that said, let me remind you that I have a text number. I want you to text me and tell me the best thing you get from today's masterclass. Maybe I just gave it to you. Whatever I told you or said that is changing the way that you think or changing the way that you're going to act, or some insight that you got here today that really opens your mind up, text me and tell me what it is. My number is 305-384-6894. Once again, 305-384-6894. So again, the topic is how to create an unfair advantage for yourself in your life, since there will always be unfair advantages. How about you get some instead of bitching about them? Number one, play the game on familiar terrain. The author Sun Tzu, who wrote the book called The Art of War. If you have not read that book, because I just said it, you need to go get it. Sun Tzu said, if you know yourself and you know the enemy and you know the terrain, in 100 battles, you will never be in peril. You will never have a problem. You will never be at a disadvantage as long as you know the enemy, and you know the terrain. All right, there's nothing that you don't know. You will usually win. What does all this mean for you, metaphorically speaking? It means play your game. What is your game? Playing on familiar terrain means playing the game that you play. That means don't try to be someone else. Don't try to contort yourself into what other people need if it doesn't fit what you do. If what you do does not fit what another person needs, then allow that person to go find someone who does fit it. If what someone is asking for is not what you do, then be willing to tell them, hey, that's not exactly what I do. Let me tell you exactly what I do, and you can tell me if this fits, but if it doesn't fit, then it's best that we go our separate directions. This is what people do who have unfair advantages. They keep the game in their space. They play the game that they want to play, not the game that other people want to play. You got to be willing to say no to anything that doesn't position you to show your best game. Where do you show your best game? Let me ask that question. This is a rhetorical question I'm asking you, but it's not rhetorical when you ask yourself, where do you play your best game? Where are you in your best position? And how much time are you spending either there in that place or positioning yourself to be in that place? Versus how much time you're spending in places that are not your best game, that are not your best terrain. All right, if you're a horse, you probably don't want to spend too much time inside of lakes and seas and oceans, because horses don't do too well in them. They do really well on dry land where they can use their best skill, which is running. And if you're a fish, you're an expert when you're inside the water, not so much when they take you out. So where are you spending your time? Are you on familiar terrain or not? People who win a lot in life, you know why they win a lot? It's not because they necessarily work harder than you. Maybe they do, but that's not the reason they're winning. It's not because they're smarter than you or just more talented than you. Maybe they are, but that's not the reason they're winning. The reason people win disproportionately to other people, they win a lot more disproportionately, is because they only play games that they know they can win. They set themselves up for success by only swinging at the pitches that they can hit, metaphorically speaking. And this is actually something you can use literally. Any of you who know baseball or softball, a good hitter in baseball or softball only swings at the pitches that they can hit. If you throw them a pitch that they can't really hit, they don't swing at it. All right, this is what good batters do. A person who's really good at baseball, I mentioned Barry Bonds yesterday. You know what made Barry Bonds so good at baseball? It's not that he just hit everything. He waited till you threw him something that he wanted to swing at, and then he hit that. And that's how he hit so many home runs, on top of the fact that he was taking performance-enhancing drugs. I say that in a sarcastic way. But Barry Bonds was a damn good baseball player because he knew which pitches he wanted to hit. And he played the game to get you to throw the pitch that he wanted you to throw so that he could hit it. And the challenge of the pitcher who was pitching against Barry Bonds is to not throw him the pitch that he wanted to hit. And the chess match was who's going to get the other person to come to their side of the game. And then the winner was whoever did it better. And Barry Bonds is pretty damn good at it. That's why he should be in the Hall of Fame. You look at something like a sport like boxing. Look at a boxer like Mike Tyson. Look at a boxer like Mike Tyson versus a boxer. Let's look at Mike Tyson first. Any of you ever seen Mike fight? You can look it up on YouTube. He has plenty of fights, and they're very entertaining, even if you're not a boxing fan. Mike Tyson was a very aggressive fighter. He was the kind of guy who would come straight at you. He would be bobbing and weaving all the time, moving his head so much. He had this peekaboo style where he would hide his face and his eyes behind his gloves, and he would just wait for you to make a mistake, and then he would just counter punch and just destroy you, because this guy was just a devastating puncher. And at the beginning of his career, he's just knocking guys out, mowing guys down. And his style was to turn the boxing match, what was a boxing match, into a slugfest, and he was going to win because he was the better slugger, the better puncher. And most of the time, Mike Tyson was winning because he got other fighters to fight his fight. And the chess match of boxing is to get the other fighter to fight the style that you want to fight and not fight the style that they want to fight. Now, contrast Mike Tyson's fighting style with somebody like Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather is not a slugger. He's not the kind of guy who's going to go try to stalk you down and walk you down and just try to out-punch you and just slug you out of the ring. Floyd Mayweather is going to out-point you. He's going to really dissect you. He's like a surgeon in the boxing ring. He's not really going to try to beat you up and just just out masculine you or out tough you. What Floyd's going to do is just wait for you to make a mistake. Every time you miss a punch, you're going to eat a punch. Every time you make a mistake, you're going to get hit. Every time you're in the wrong place, you're going to get hit. Every time you try to throw a punch, you're going to miss, and then he's going to hit you. That's what he does, and he does it through the whole fight to the point that he's kind of frustrated. He frustrates his opponents to where they thought they were good before they got in the ring with Floyd, and he realized how far they have to go. Two completely different styles between Mike Tyson and Floyd Mayweather, but both of them were successful with their styles based on the fact that they got the other fighter, the opponent, to play their game. This is the same thing that you want to do in life. A wise business investor, any of you who invest in something like, any of you who's involved in business investing, like the word I'm looking for is venture funding. Venture funding, or you get involved in any kind of like stock trading or anything like that. Really smart and successful business investors don't just invest in random things. They don't invest based on hunches. They don't invest based on getting lucky. They invest based on knowing that they have an unfair advantage against everybody else. Now, I'm not an economist or a person who studies the world of investing in that way, but the things that I read and the people that I hear talk about it, they say these things all the time, that the people who make the most money in investing, they are not just smarter than everybody else. They only invest when they know that they have some inside information that the rest of the world does not have. Therefore, they can get in and get their money before the rest of the world finds out about that opportunity, and now they made their money while everybody else is gambling with theirs. This is what wise investors do. This is what wise boxers do. This is what wise baseball players do. This is what wise business people do. They only play games that they can win. If you're putting yourself in situations where you can't win, or there's only a 50-50 chance of you winning, no wonder you are not getting the success that you want. Stop playing games where you do not have an advantage. If you don't have an unfair advantage, do not play. Do not get involved. Play the games where you can win. You don't want a fair fight, everybody. All right, wise investors don't get in fair fights. Good batters in baseball do not get in fair fights. Good boxers do not get in fair fights. They get in fights where they have the advantage, or if they get in something that starts as a fair fight, they maneuver the situation to where it's an unfair fight, then they engage. If you're not doing that, that's the exact reason why you keep finding yourself being on the wrong end of unfair advantages. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is how to have an unfair advantage in life. Know what your game is and stick to it. Now, what did I just explain to you? I just told you Mike Tyson knew what his game was. He knew exactly how he wanted to fight. If Mike Tyson's still alive, you meet Mike Tyson, ask him, What was your style when you went into a boxing match? You get in a fight with another fighter, and every fighter has their own style, Mike. How did you know how you were going to go at them? And Mike Tyson would probably tell you exactly what I'm going to tell you now. Paraphrasing, I knew what my style was. So I knew I wanted to get that other guy to fight my fight, because I knew if I got him to fight my fight, I was going to win, because I was better at my style than he was at my style. Floyd Mayweather, the same thing. I'm going to get you to fight my fight. An investor, I'm going to get people to play my game. A good batter in baseball or a good pitcher in baseball, I'm going to get the batter to swing at the pitches that I want to throw. Or the batter's going to say, I'm going to get the pitcher to throw the pitches that I want to hit. And this is how you become successful. This is the game. This is the chess match, ladies and gentlemen, of life. Of learning how to play this chess match, of maneuvering situations in life to where you have the advantage. You do not want to be in fair fights. If you're getting in fair fights, you are an idiot. I just gave you an episode on that not too long ago, that fair fights are for losers and idiots. Episode 1786. Only idiots get in fair fights, because you're giving yourself a 50-50 chance of winning and a 50-50 chance of losing. All right, you don't want to be in that. You want to be where you have the advantage and where most of the time you are going to win. Therefore, you can bet big, because the smart money says you're probably going to come out on top. If you're a basketball player, for example, and you get the ball on offense in the middle of a game, you don't have to shoot the ball even if you're wide open. You can be wide open at the three-point line with the ball. Do you have to shoot it? No. Now, why would you not shoot the ball if you're wide open at the three-point line? You may be wondering right now. The reason why you don't shoot the ball is because maybe you're not a three-point shooter. Maybe that's not your role on the team. Maybe you have never shot a three-pointer in your whole career, so you don't need to start right now in the middle of the game. If that's not your role and that's not your job on the team, maybe you shouldn't shoot that three-point shot. Smart players in anything in life, whether we're talking, let's just say sports. We'll use a sport like basketball since I already brought it up. Smart players play within themselves. That's a phrase that people use. Any of you who's not a basketball fan, this is a phrase that you may hear in basketball. This player knows how to play within himself or within herself. What does that mean? That means playing to your strengths. That means if you're a big guy who likes to back people down towards the basket and dunk on them, you position yourself to back people down to the basket and dunk on them. You don't go to the three-point line and try to prove that you can be Steph Curry. And if you're Steph Curry, you're not trying to prove you can be Shaquille O'Neal. You play your game and let them play their game, and we'll see who wins. We'll see who comes out on top when we both get to play our own games. If you have a weakness, if you're Shaquille O'Neal style and you want to become Steph Curry, you work on that on your own time. You don't do that in the middle of the game, try to prove you're Steph Curry. And if you're Steph Curry, you don't try to prove you're Shaq in the middle of the game. You work on that with your trainer in the offseason. Smart players, and again, I'm using this as a metaphor, folks, not just basketball. Smart players in the game of life play within themselves. You know your strengths, you know your weaknesses, you know where you're a fish in water, and you know when you're a fish out of water, and you stay out of the situations where you're out of water, because then you don't look too good. You work on your weaknesses, if you choose to, on your own time. You avoid the shiny object syndrome of chasing around what you see everybody else doing. So do not gas yourself up into thinking that because you can do one thing, you could be Shaquille O'Neal, that means you could also be Steph Curry. Don't gas yourself up into thinking that because you're no Kobe, that you also got to be LeBron. All right, do what you do. Do what works for you. You create unfair advantages by playing your game, ladies and gentlemen. It's not by doing something different. It's by doing, first of all, knowing what your game is and then only playing that. I can't stress this point enough. And this is where usually when I am dealing with people and they're telling me about the unfair advantages that are working against them, the unfair advantages that other people have, it's usually because the individual who's doing the bitching and complaining doesn't even know what their game is. They're the boxer who doesn't know what their style is. So then when they come up against a Mike Tyson's kicking their ass and they don't know why, but you don't have a style. You can't even get Mike to play your game because you don't have a game. You can't get Floyd to play your game because you don't know what your game is. You can't get Steph Curry to play your style. What's your style? You don't know. You can't get Shaq to play your style. You don't know. You don't know when to invest in businesses because you don't know what unfair advantage you're looking for. You don't know what angle that you're coming at. I told you about angles in episode number 750. Know your angles and know the angles of other people. You have to know what your angles are in life. Your angles are, where are you at your best? What situation do you need to be in to where if people just let you do your thing in that situation, you're going to look like a damn superstar. And people are going to be like, wow, this person's amazing. And what situations would you probably not look too good? Now, I'm right here in front of a microphone. I'm good in front of a microphone if I get to just go and talk about what I want to talk about and do my thing for 20 to 30 minutes every single day. That's where I'm the best. Now, if you put on a backing track and ask me to sing, I'm probably not going to look like I'm probably not going to look as good singing as I do speaking and talking about what I'm talking about. But I know this, therefore I stay away from the places where I don't belong and I stay in the places where I do belong. What is your game? Do you know what your game is? Where are you at your best? If somebody said to you, listen, I'm gonna set you up for your best possible situation, you can do it every day, and we're gonna see how good people take you as when they get to see you doing it. What is that? What does it look like? Where's it at? Where would you be? How does it set up? And why is that the best place for you to be? Do you have an answer to these questions? The foolish individual thinks they can do everything. The foolish individual sees somebody else doing something, they think they can do it or they think they need to do it. Why? It's because they don't have that North Star. Your North Star is the thing that you are the best at, the thing that separates you from everybody else. What are you the best in the world at? What intersection of things? It doesn't have to be one main thing. You might not be better at basketball than LeBron, but you can combine basketball with something else and something else on top of that maybe, and you're the only one at that intersection. Now you own it. So what is that going to be for you? Do you have any idea? Because once you find that out, now you maneuver everything else to funnel everything else into that one thing so you can be the superstar every time. This is what people with unfair advantages do every day, folks, in case you didn't know. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is how to create an unfair advantage. You must know or do what other people don't know, or they do know but they don't want to do. Napoleon Bonaparte is recognized as maybe the greatest general of all time, greatest war general, actual war on the actual battlefield, guns and all that. And there was a time when Napoleon's army was set to do battle with another army. The other army knew that they were eventually coming, didn't know exactly when, and had a pretty good idea from where Napoleon's army was coming, so they were ready. So Napoleon is talking to his lieutenants, and they're telling him that, hey, if we are to surprise the enemy, we would need to maybe cross the Alps mountains. But at this point where we would cross the Alps and really surprise the enemy, it's kind of impassable right here. We can't really pass through the Alps mountains at this point. No one has ever done it successfully. We might end up perishing and dying if we try to cross the Alps in this space. And Napoleon's response was, for Napoleon's army, there shall be no Alps. And he crossed the Alps at the exact point that one of his lieutenants told him it was impossible to pass. Crossed the Alps, surprised the enemy, and he ended up winning that battle. Napoleon won a lot of battles while we're bringing his name up. I remember when I was growing up, playing ball, just trying to make my game into something. I didn't have any teacher, I didn't have any facilities or anything. The only access I had was an outdoor basketball court. And I'm in the city of Philadelphia. So in the wintertime, you can't really play in the wintertime. You play in the summer and the spring and the beginning of the fall. I realized, first of all, that in the summer months, from about the time the sun came up, no, not the time the sun came up, a little bit later. So about 10:30 a.m. to about 4 o'clock p.m., the sun was out. And the sun was shining brightly on the basketball court. This is concrete, blacktop asphalt. And it was very hot out there. Very, very hot. And it was so hot that it was quote unquote too hot for most people. Nobody would be outside during that time of day. The courts would be completely empty from about 10:30 to about 4 o'clock. Because it was just too hot for anybody to be out there. The sun is beaming directly on you. I realized that was my opportunity. So what was I doing? I was doing what other people knew about. The court was there. Everybody knew where the courts were because in the evenings, everybody would be outside. But nobody wanted to come out there because it was too hot. And that was my advantage, doing what other people didn't want to do. I didn't have an informational advantage. I had a willingness advantage that other people didn't have. Napoleon Bonaparte, same thing. He had a willingness advantage. Everybody knew about the Alps Mountains and that this part you can't pass there, but he did it anyway. If you happen to have some information that other people don't have, you can do that as well. And that's harder and harder to have these days. Informational advantages don't last long because everybody has access to information. What I tell you not too long ago, these days is not about having the right answers, it's about having the right question. When you ask the right question, then you can separate yourself from everybody else. It's not about having the right information. Episode 1741, why asking the right question is more important than having the answer. Because Google has all the answers. But now you got to know what question to ask to get the answer that you need. So where is your advantage? What are you willing to do that other people don't want to do? They know about it, but they don't want to do it. Even if they found out what you were doing, they still don't want to do it because they're just not willing to do the work. And that's where you have a real advantage, where everybody knows exactly what's going on, but they still can't replicate your success. That one you could do forever. There's a rapper by the name of Lil Wayne. I mentioned Lil Wayne in my book, Work on Your Game. And one of the things that he did around the time, this is probably around 2005 through 2007, about a 2 or 3 year period. And 50 Cent did it before him. Lil Wayne was just trying to get his name more known. He wanted to build his fan base. He wanted his fans to be eager and excited for his upcoming album. And here's what Lil Wayne did. He started putting out music for free. Now, you know that in the music business, the only way you're going to make money is if you put out music for sale, like an album. You put an album out, people buy it, they stream it, and you get paid off the streams or you get paid off the sales of the album. Lil Wayne took music and he was putting it out completely for free. No charge whatsoever, letting people download it, share it, spread it, etc., etc. Why was he doing that? He was doing that to build up a buzz around his name. And he did it successfully enough that when he did put an album out, he sold a whole lot of copies of that album because of the buzz that he built up, because he was willing to take what most people didn't want to do, and he did it. Most artists didn't want to take their work and put it out completely for free to the public. They wanted to sell their work. But Lil Wayne said, how about I give them a whole bunch of stuff for free? So then when it's time for me to sell something, they all know about me. They all know I'm good. They're all eager to hear me say something else, and they'll be willing to buy it. 50 Cent did the same thing. He was in the record industry, got shot, got dropped from his record label. Nobody wanted to deal with him. So he started putting out his own music completely for free, built his buzz back up from nothing, got signed to a record deal, put his first album out and sold 10 million copies, his first album. Why? Because he was willing to do something that other people looked at as taboo. Like, why would I put my work out for free? I'm actually in the music industry. I get paid when I sell music. Why would I do it for free? It makes no sense. Well, 50 Cent said, I'm going to do the exact opposite. Everybody knows about it, but nobody wants to do it. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to create an opportunity for myself. Lil Wayne and 50 Cent did not invent putting things out for free, but they were the ones who took advantage of it, and they maximized it, and everybody knows who Lil Wayne and 50 Cent are. Even if you don't own a single Lil Wayne or 50 Cent album, you know exactly who they are. Why is that? Not because of how many they sold, it's because of how much work they put out, to the point that you couldn't go anywhere without knowing about them, even to this very day. All that said, let's recap today's class, which is how to create an unfair advantage. I told you this episode was coming. Number 1, play on familiar terrain. Sun Tzu said, when you know yourself, you know the enemy, and you know the terrain, in 100 battles, you will never be in peril. What that means is play your game. Do not try to be somebody else. Don't contort to what other people need if it doesn't fit what you do, because you will not be in your best light when you do that. Wise investors only invest when they have an informational advantage over all the other investors out there. If they're investing along with everybody else, they are gambling with their money, and wise investors never gamble with their money. Number 2, know your game and stick to it. In a basketball game, just because you're open for a shot doesn't mean you have to shoot it. Sometimes you're open for a reason. Smart players play within themselves and they play to their strengths. So you work on your weaknesses on your own time. You avoid shiny object syndrome. Do not gas yourself up into thinking that you can or need to do what other people are doing. Only fools think this way. Number 3, know or do what other people do not know or are not willing to do. Napoleon Bonaparte crossed the Alps mountains at a pass where most people thought it was impossible to pass. He passed it, surprised the enemy, won himself another battle. 50 Cent and Lil Wayne took a concept of putting music out for free, which what all other musicians, that was anathema to them, to point their music out for free, because everybody's trying to make money from music. They said, we're going to put it out for free anyway, exploited the advantage that other people didn't want to take advantage of, or what other people saw as a disadvantage, they turned it into an advantage, built up a buzz around their names, and both of them sold more records after putting stuff out for free than they sold before they were putting stuff out for free. So you go figure. This is one of the ways that you can look at things unconventionally and create an unfair advantage for yourself. And bottom line here, everybody, is there's always a way to create an unfair advantage for yourself in life. You never want to be the person complaining about other people's advantages. Don't be looking at the food on other people's plates. You create the advantage for yourself by asking yourself better questions. And by the way, I have a book called Ask Yourself a Better Question. You can get that by going to workonyourgame.com. Send me a text. Tell me the most valuable insight. What are you going to think or do differently based on what you heard today? My number, 305-384-6894. Once again, 305-384-6894. Work on your game. Dre all day.